5, 4, 2. Good evening and welcome to Here's the Life with Zemrah and of course my better half Ed. And the song you're listening to, which everyone loves, I got to write this time. We happen to have the lady herself here that wrote the lyrics to that, Bonnie Thompson Ford. And we're so excited trying to get here for the last couple of weeks to bring us some powerful information. And she wants to talk about the gap of knowing politics and young people and music. And she comes from a very, very spiritual side. Ed is her bio. She does so. She does a lot, and it's a blessing because she doesn't deal with any idle time. She deals with marital relationships. So Ed is going to talk a little bit about.
She's a licensed mental health counselor. She has worked with individuals, groups, families, and especially children for over 30 years. Ms. Thompson Ford is a specialist in human development and the well-being of especially children. She integrates her treatment on how the power of thought impacts the development process. She emphasizes that time has arrived for human consciousness to realize the seeding of creation embedded in all is a power yet to be profoundly explored. The seeding of power of the creation. Her passion is to be part of this movement to address our multi-dimensional connection and to witness new ways of moving light through the planet.
Yes.
Just explain that to me. Indeed. Ms. Thompson Ford attended the Art Institute of Chicago. She graduated in 1983 from the Chicago State University with a master's degree in science and education. She is author of a book called Mono Connected to Source Energy, published in 2006. I got to read that. That's got to be deep. This was intended as an introductory addition to an ongoing series to help children become more aware of their human existence and to be able to relieve stress disorders by feeling love from within and learning to develop a higher consciousness. Ms. Thompson Ford is currently focusing on the continuation of writing and facilitating workshops. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Bonnie Thompson Ford.
And we will have to have her back for part 2 because we want her to expound on this book. So Bonnie.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us how you came about dealing with mental health and, like you said, dealing with the gap of things, because truly that is a critical issue right now.
It is truly that. And actually, I started out as I was an artist. That's why I went to the Art Institute.
Yeah.
I was in graphic design, and that's where my world was. And somehow I got sent to. I was doing work at Chicago State, and I started meeting people, and I started deciding to get a little deep with information and questioning my instructors, and we really got into a thing. So I started researching spirituality, because I've always, at the age of 8, asked the question to my grandmother, why are you all so worried about the devil, how good God is? I'm only 8 years old, so I really didn't know,
Wow.
that. And back in those days, you didn't say those kind of things.
Exactly.
So I'm glad I'm still here. But so that's why I really started digging into this from 8. And it was really difficult for me to continue because I got so much feedback as to, stop that, get back, go back. You're in the wrong spot, And so it pushed me off and I kept coming back. But anyway, I think that coming from the art interest, moving into working with people, is because my working at Chicago State, I had all kinds of people coming back to talk to me. I was working in the signage department, and we would be making signs for all kinds. This was, the things I was doing while I was going to school there. And I had all kinds of fraternities and sororities. All of them would come back, and we'd make all these signs, and they started questioning me. Then the instructors started questioning. I got an article in the newspaper with the university there, and stuff just would go up.
Now, when you say signs, what type of signs? Rebellious signs?
No. It's for people who are having events. and different things that were going on.
Okay.
So we kind of we did a
Sure.
lot.
I thought you all was doing protesting.
Oh, no, no.
She was
Okay.
designing.
Just doing that, yes.
Well, one thing that I do know that when you keep coming back to something and people are fighting you on it, and you keep returning to it.
Mhm.
That's yours to have.
It is
Yeah.
because the interest is there and you're moved, and
Absolutely.
that's a part of some of the things that I wanted to talk about before we get to the gap, is that understanding that that we are human beings and that we do have an inner spirit that lives within all of us. I don't care who you are, what you're doing, even if you have no idea and you have no reckoning of the light inside of you, it's still there. It's not going to go anywhere because it is spirit.
It's there.
It is the slice of God,
Yes.
that piece that if God was the pie, you are a slice.
Yes.
So that's there, and it's not going to go anywhere until it decides to just let you go and going back home to where it came from. So anyway, when you start to working with people, you start to see those things, that gap, and especially now, the day that we're living in now, the times that we're living in. I'm going to scoot past a lot of stuff, but to get to the point here about the gap. And when we look at all of these different components of the world that we're living in, and it's a lot of pain, a lot of hurt,
A lot of anger.
a lot of anger,
A lot of anger.
confusion. And so when we deal with all of this and you apply it to all of these different components of our, human, adventures, we go, I mean, it's, as far as it's like politics, all of it. Politics, relationships, families, all of the stuff that we do. Environmental things, community, just period. When you look at how we are managing things right now, you can go back, something's wrong. Something's very wrong with what we're doing. And and nothing against how we worship, because I do have nothing against, and I want people to know, nothing against religions, nothing against you going to church, nothing against you praising God or going to wherever you got to go, because the matter is, if we're all going to one point, we choose sometimes different pathways, and sometimes, and so it's okay. I just rather see you headed to that point that we're all trying to get to rather than not do anything.
Right.
But let's go back and look at this. We've been doing this for such a long, long time. So it's time now, I think, for us to start opening up our minds and elevating our consciousness to a point where we can see things from a higher level. We've been doing the wrong, not the wrong, but traditional, put it that way,
Yeah.
stuff so long till we miss out. So when you go back to any of these components, we can start even with the community. The community was once doing some good things, and then we had a lot of the drug stuff that came
Infiltration.
through. Yeah, filtration that came through, and it just the grandmothers were taking care of their kids, and we just lost it. So when you see the kids walking around now the way they are, you go back and see how that really but that was all planned and set up, and it was designed because we know the content, and we know some of us who have a conscious level, we still don't have love and caring associated with it. We look at it as a greed mechanism. It's a mechanism, even though we got this power, let's get money, or let's step on somebody's back. Let's do anything we can to stay on top because we are in power. So it's even dealt with the wrong way.
Yes.
So what I talk about is when we learn that we are connected, when we know we walking this earth basically because Spirit is allowing it to do so. And when Spirit says it's time to go, then you are no longer, your body is worthless. It goes back to the dust.
Yes.
And your spirit goes back to where it came from. So if you can see that pattern, we need to find out, well, what am I here for? Why was I born? If this is only flesh and blood that I'm walking around and I'm just taking over a body and doing things, there must be a purpose to it. And especially if everybody has a different fingerprint all over the world.
Yes.
If everybody back in the grandma used to say, well, we know God knows every hair on your head. They would tell the truth. They probably didn't know what they were saying. back in the day when they said, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. It was just a song. But they didn't know how to explain all that. But that is the light within us all.
And it's an actual light. Scientists have proven.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever you gain greater knowledge, there's a luminous light that goes on in your brain, and it lights up. So it said Einstein's head, his brain was a lot brighter than a lot of other people, because the cells in the brain light up every time you get some new information. And there's room for billions of pieces of information. We just got a couple thousand going.
Exactly. And the other thing, too, speaking of the brain, is that we have to understand the brain is designed to make you happy. It's just a tool, although it is your connection. It's your connection to the universe and your connection to spirit, but it is a tool designed to make you happy. So however you train it, it's going to help you to do whatever you want to do, whatever path, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. It will take you there. So that's the way we were made up. We were created that way. So when we learn how to feed our brain what needs to be fed, and we learn how to communicate with our brains the way it's supposed to be communicated, then we'll be doing the things that we need to do and following our purposes, because we all have a reason for being here.
And that's a good point, because I think a lot of people, that's why what is my purpose? Why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? And a lot of times people really don't know.
That's so true.
And do you think that might be a lot of times when people get off their not plateau, but they get led in the wrong direction because they don't know what direction to go in. So that's why they wind up on drugs, they wind up in jail, wind up in so many bad situations.
So
Do you think that has a lot to do with it?
Of course, because I want to get back to the main thing is that they don't know how to stop and focus on the purpose. They'll ask, but they don't do anything about it, you see. Because once you start to ask and get involved, and we'll talk about that at another time,
You got to do something.
Then it'll come to you, the time on it, not just a question. You have to really get involved. The thing about the universe, it means that there's work to do. I will do a lot for you. I am watching over you. I am making sure that you are sleeping at night, your heart's still beating, and I'm doing this. But you have a role to play.
Exactly.
So when we don't put in our time to connect with all that, that's when you start to get answers. And I am a witness of that. And it takes work. It does not just drop in your lap unless you have a very elevated consciousness that you came here with in the first place. Because that's what we're trying to do now. And so let's talk about the elevation of consciousness. Because what happens, like you said, when people experience different encounters, they get caught up. So once you get caught up, it goes into the brain wave and it gets lost in the subconscious somewhere. And subconscious holds on to all those things that are really kind of profound to us. Yeah. And it will come back. And for instance, if you become a drug addicted person, that consciousness, it will stay in the back of the subconsciousness and remind you, don't you need a hit? Don't you want to go get some drugs? And if you were doing something to help people, you were going to shelters and helping people, it would do the same thing. Don't you think it's time that we go to the shelter? Don't forget to do this for this person, what you're going to give to them. So that's the way the brain works. It just works like that. So we get caught up in what we desire, what we like, what we want to do. And that's why we don't spend a lot of time on what is my purpose. We'll ask somebody what it is, but we won't spend time to actually meditate on 2 times a day or twice and help me to find where I'm supposed to go.
So Bonnie, you're saying that as a person thinking, that's who they are.
That's exactly who they are.
So actually, we can do our own self-help and improving ourselves that doesn't cost anything just by changing what we think about.
Exactly. It is the thought. It's all about
And how do you go about that? Because a lot of times you have thoughts. You can be a wonderful, wonderful person, mm-hmm. and thoughts will come into your brain that you're saying, wow, where did that come from? Yes. What causes that?
That can be also a connection. It's a connection to, for one thing, you're not by yourself. When you think about the light and the power, it works with your brain. It makes an effort to work with. You can catch it or you can let it go. You can absorb it or you can seek it, you see? And that's how that works. but it's always working with you to help you do things. I got started, believe it or not, with getting up in the morning, running and going so many places. It helped me find more of nowhere today. I had no idea before I went to bed. And that's a kind of a norm happens with people. And you'll find out before you know it, you got it. Or it's found the colors that go with each other. That's real simple, but it does happen when people don't pay attention to it.
Yeah,
That's
I
spirit.
prepare myself at
That
night.
is spirit working with you
I
right
prepare
there.
myself every night.
Yeah. But it works with the little small things.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm missing something, can't find it, I say, well, you know where it is. Boom. Before I can turn my head, I'm right there in front of it. And this happens almost every day.
That's amazing too.
So as like I said before, that we are actually spiritual people having a physical experience. We just don't. I'm never taught early in life to practice connecting with the spirit, because that's where all the answers come from.
And that brings up the gap. That's what we're talking about. It's been missing. We get taught so many things, and it's a lot we don't get taught, but we just don't get taught about how we connect with the universe and what we're made of. We think just because we were born, in fact, we don't even give it thought. We really don't give it.
We just go on
We
with
go
life.
about our way, and we're all concerned with everyday mundane situations that you're in. We really don't stop to give it. We don't give it that connection, that thought.
That's true.
Is it that we just don't realize that we're actually in charge of what happens? We don't believe that. We believe that life.
I think
life
we don't believe it, that we're in charge.
We don't believe that we're even spirit. We don't believe that spirit lives within us. Very seldom. You take a little kid will understand that spirit lives in them more than an adult. So, if we don't know it, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So therefore, I feel that there needs to be a real big effort of teaching this kind of thing that we're talking about now, helping people to understand who they are and what they're made of and what this could be and how much power they have in there to make that purpose happen. That's what needs to be taught. And it needs to be taught as young as you can get. It doesn't matter really about age. But in a sense, we would say the kids that are coming up, their minds are already, you see, when we talk about consciousness, and I do believe we come and go. So when you have children being born, these children being born now are born with very elevated consciousness. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to go and do everything right, because if the society is teaching them some things, or they're not teaching them some things, or they see things that's not connecting with what they think it's supposed to be, then they'll go off and do their own. And that's what we got a lot going on with us now. You got these children, well, you look at them, and we want to, right away, we look at their pants if they're hanging down, and we start judging and trying to figure them out, now why like this, and we know it doesn't feel good to us, but what's happening is a lot of them, the world is not teaching them anything. They've lost parental instruction, you see. They've lost spiritual instruction. So they got minds that are absolutely fantastic if you ever get a chance to talk to one of them. But since they don't have that integration with the kind of information we know they need to know, and they're not seeing it, they're not being presented with it, because they're judging the politicians. They're judging the world and all the things that are going on around them, and they're not it's not making sense to them.
What makes sense to me if I was the young person?
Yeah. So at this point, they're saying, well, what the heck, we'll just do what everybody else is doing.
And that's the attitude
what
they
you
take,
have.
and that's what's scary.
This is what you have. But when you take them by themselves, and you really sit down, and we go over some of the stuff that we're talking about, they light up like a lamp. It's just unbelievable.
It's like you're talking about things they've already thinking about.
Right.
They go like, that's the way I see the world. Wow, I didn't know you noticed.
There you go.
Yes, we
And
know.
they're not even, they're shocked to know that you can come to them like that. So this is what we're dealing with. And so we have to look at that gap as a need to really open this up and try to do what we can to address it and apply it to all these different components, you see. The reason I say this is sometimes you've got adults. We're living in a world right now where we're so jealous, and so we don't want to work together. We don't have the appeal to even meet and greet each other with love. We want to meet and see how can I beat you, how can I get above you, or put you down.
It's a mean spirit.
It's a mean spirit. So if we can ever come together and start to organize, how are we
support
going?
one
Yes.
another. We always talk about that
Do
on our segment because that's so important and something that we just, I don't know what it is about us, but we just cannot do it.
Right. Exactly.
It's always a competition.
Always.
And it's just not.
Always competitive.
Exactly.
And if we can get to the point where this whole thing is built on oneness, and in order for me to, get into a lot of the other stuff that's pretty deep, it would address that. And, because there's only one mind, we pick from that mind, and to give you an example of how that works, and I'm saying this for a reason, is that you can think of something that you want to do, and if you don't do it, you'll look up somebody else is doing it already.
Yeah.
Because you let it pass you by, because it's one mind. So it's whoever pulls on this mind and absorb what it
gets in tune.
Get busy.
Yeah.
You better get busy. I've had that happen.
We talk about that.
So
me too.
But when we talk about that oneness, that also tells you it's oneness of spirit. It's oneness. If we can come together and start to concentrate on how we can come together and start to try to correct our thought processes, you see, we can be so powerful and do so much.
Yes.
And we can start to help some of these people in some of these areas. And even when you go to the churches and to all, everybody wants to be, I'm in charge, and I mean, the intentions of, don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about intentions, are to do good things, but thank God that we do have, churches in our community, but our thought process has got to start to go a little bit different, and to the point of estimating our consciousness. We do these things that we've been doing for a long time. Let's find some more. Let's look at how God wants us to do better. Let's find some ways to love. Let's find some ways to examine love. How can we come together and cut out the power movements? Let's just come together and see what we can do to help each other. Find those places, because all of these things that we exist in, from, like I said, from politics, from religion, from education, and from
that's a whole nother page right now.
And families, and even divorce, and all these other kind of things that happen with us, things that we don't understand. We don't handle them the way we should. There's so much truth in some of this stuff that it would blow your mind if we get into it. The way we see it in a linear fashion, which is part of humanity's thinking. When you think in terms of multidimensional energy, it's a whole different process.
Yeah, because what do you think that as far as even in, because I know you do a lot with relationships, even with relationships, I wonder how do you say that you love someone, you come together, you've been together for years, and then you wind up divorcing?
That can happen. And it can happen a lot because people aren't being true to themselves. You're not looking inside of yourself, divorce is something we never want to see happen. If we can not, especially when you see, couples with kids and families and that kind of stuff, you don't want to see that. But there sometimes may be a time. You see, and I don't want to start quoting the wrong thing. And I'm going to say this, and I'm not going to go back to this anymore. But when you get in terms of what was God's in the Bible? Let's go back to the favorite person. One of God's favorites that was doing so many different things. Do you recall? I think it was David, but either way, he's doing some everything. Now, so sometimes we look at things through a linear thought process, and we see things, and this is all man's made up stuff, because over in other places you can have 3 or 4 wives. Some other place you can have maybe 2 or 3 husbands. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. This is societal stuff that we have brought up, but it's still society and its rule, and you want to be able to do unto others that you would have them do unto you. Take all this stuff in consideration, But sometimes people move past each other. Sometimes they outgrow the other. They can be together for 30 years and decide, wow, I just realized I've outgrown. This is just not making it for me. If you're growing together, because everything we do is a growth process, even marriage. You don't marry anybody by coincidence. There are no coincidences in the world anyway. You come together for growth and development. And sometimes you outgrow the other. Sometimes you grow together and you keep on moving together. So, we have to take all of that in consideration, you see. But you need to always focus on yourself, who you are, where you're going. And if you're being, say for instance, you decide to go, and I can say that because I had that experience. I divorced based on, I was just going into a different direction. I had done traditional from the bone. I couldn't, from a kid. I couldn't go anywhere, couldn't get any kind of lounge, you didn't do anything. The church was first. We had to do it in every program or whatever they had, we had to be there, Sunday to the end of the day. So I had traveled that. And at 8 years old, the questions that I'm asking my grandparents, I should have known that if you're going to marry somebody, they better be ready because you're going to be moved. And it didn't last long based on that because we were just in a different place. And I'm not going to go backwards for the sake of making you happy because I think I'll make it worse by staying with you and trying to be somebody that you cannot gather. You can't get it. You can't connect with it.
They say the brave give up and then the cowards give up instead.
Yes. So you can look at it from that point and you can look at it from being together forever. So it has different phases is what I'm trying to say. Everybody's story is not the same person's story when it comes to relationships. We want to put everybody in a box and try to measure it from that standard, but it just does not work like that. And that's because the gap is missing. We don't understand the multidimensional, essence of what marriage really is meaning before the universe.
Well,
The
they say
universe,
marriages, they fail 60% of the time. That's a losing record
they at the point too right now. Some of the younger people aren't marrying as fast.
at all.
They'll just
No,
just say we're friends, and they keep it at
My
that.
friend of me.
Yes, because they're understanding some of this stuff. They don't know how to tell you this, but that's how they're thinking.
Yeah.
Oh, we never even say anything about that kind of stuff. We just go every day, day by day, and do what we do. And
I think a lot of that is because of what they've seen and what they've exposed.
they're exposed to because say that they've seen, they say they've looked at marriages.
Abuse and all of that. Yeah.
There you go.
Because it was built on a contract.
Yes.
It was like a business proposition that may force you to do certain things. And they said, we're not doing a contract.
Yeah.
We're going to do it because we want to.
And that's what you're supposed to do.
And that's
So they're changing the dynamics and the
and
definition of marriage.
you're gonna see more changes as we continue. Within the next 10 years, you're gonna really, if we're still around, praise God, you're gonna see a lot of changes. Things that are so very, very
Well, I
different.
think
So we seeing changes now because
But-
there's never been a time
Right.
with this president even. That's a big change in itself.
Right.
We're going to take a short pause for the calls. We're here at Intellectual Radio with Here's Life with Zemrah. And I want to let you know, make sure you like me on Facebook. And one thing I'm really excited about is I am finally up on iTunes and Spotify. I'd say maybe in about the next 2 or 3 weeks, I should be up on Pandora and some other streamings. So make sure that you download Love is Possible and enjoy my CD.
Get that music.
Every time we meet, it's something
I could go on and buy Love is Possible real quick from iTunes, but not now. Do it later.
how it's been.
This takes emotion.
Life
That's like the That presents you the pipeline from school to prison.
Oh, yeah.
That's what that's all about.
So we're going to talk about bringing you back to that.
That,
When you writing that?
oh, well.
She busy.
No. I mean, I get here every Tuesday, so I can do like maybe another. Not this coming, but maybe. And all that comes from the clinical work that we do. That's why we sat down and actually put that together. It was really it was a presentation. We presented it to the Gary, and
I figured you did.
yeah. And how to get. That's what we do the same thing. That's how he got started. Just sat down and started. He'll say hello.
Just right there. What do you want?
But it's just so much. It's so much because
There's so much. There's so simple.
it's simple. And I
5, 4, 3, 2.
We have a little technical difference. One of my favorite songs.
I love it.
Very irresistible, Zemrah, Loving You. One of my favorite pieces off of that CD, which you still can also download that too. Irresistible Zemrah, very irresistible Zemrah.
And the third one gonna be very.
Well, we were just talking about too with Bonnie, which is a whole nother program. She's going to join us back maybe in a week after next, which will be very powerful because this is really and truly important community empowerment program, which is designed to reduce the pipeline from school to prison. So that is going to be something that should be a very, very powerful segment. So we're going to make sure that she, comes and shares that with us. One of the things that I really want you to talk about, though, a little bit, because time just goes by before you know it, is the crisis with mental health.
well, that's really one of the bigger hats that I wear.
I know that's your passion.
Yes, and I love helping people. And I'm kind of, I was just speaking to one of my coworkers too, that I have what we call, I have to utilize some of the traditional mechanisms because we went to school for that. But I also utilize a lot of spirituality and a lot of spiritual wisdom to coordinate the two. So I'm finding that, like, I'm working a lot with some of the kids that are on probation now. And I'm able to light them up with information that
Protects their spirit.
that's right, or things that they need to hear that they have never heard. So I really observe the person's spirituality and where they are and how open they are and what they're able to accept. And I open up with whatever approach I need to help them to be able to relay that to me. So I'll know where they are, and then I'll know how to move forward.
So you kind of tune into their spirit and where they're at.
And they will let you know. And one of the things that has happened with all this is that because Spirit is working with all of this, so I usually get sent people who are ready. I'm all the people that come to me, I don't care how old, from 4 up, age 4, they let you know that they're ready, you see. And so it's the beautiful part of knowing that I'm not working alone. So I do this.
Now, when you say ready, explain what you're saying.
I mean,
they're
when
ready
they're
to
open,
learn and hear.
That's right.
And to be better
Exactly.
for their life.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, and I don't care that even the young, we misjudge them sometimes. That's why these little kids come here, they can say some things.
Oh, wow.
But they're open. Some of them are really open. They want to know more. They want to know why you don't know anymore than what you do.
Exactly.
Because they are really ready. And I was told that probably, like, again, 5 or 10 years from now, they'll come out of the room walking. So we're ready to have some experiences because right now, the reason why the mental health thing is because it's time now to really, I'm doing all I can to help and apply this knowledge and wisdom as much as I can while I can, because We have people who are, I'm not the only person working, in this area. There's a lot of people who are trying to say some of these things and make it happen, introducing new thought and new ways of approach to healing things and situations. So I'm into this thing, and I know that it works because I see it and measure it, and adding the spirituality, not just when people speak of spirituality and mental health, they're thinking that you pray or that you just take people to, a center and somebody will take them to church or Sunday school, which is beautiful. I'm not against that.
I know
But
what you're
I'm saying there's so much deep stuff. These kids are ready for that depth. And so I open them up to find out where they are, and I try to just speed it. And I'm not doing it alone. I'm saying that's happening to me because I work with my higher self.
Now, when it comes to people being homeless in Great America, do you think that that is a state of mind, or again, when we're talking about spirit and all of that, is there such thing as you're homeless because of because it's your way of life, so to speak, or because of the fact that you don't have the finances or whatever, or do you think it's just it's in the mind,
It is
a mindset?
It is definitely a mindset. I'm not saying other things can't play a role, but it still affects the mind because everything happens to us through the mind. I mean, really, even if it's a financial problem, it still has to start with the mind and how how you see it.
So do you really have to be in that state?
Let me say, people who are, first of all, most of those people there they are into a different mental state of consciousness. A lot of times when we give up, or a lot of times when we encounter things we cannot deal with, we throw it into the subconscious, and we lose that thought, the normal thinking patterns that most people have. It doesn't mean we don't know how they relate to the universe. We really don't. So sometimes you call people crazy and you don't know what they're doing. So I think number one, we need to stop trying to put them in a box and saying what they're doing. But actually judging them, misjudging them, it's stigmatizing. And what we need to do then is start to operate. When you operate from love, the people need care. They're to the point where sometimes how they sleep out in that cold and manage, you couldn't do it because of their conscious level. That's where they've gone to. They dealing with the universe, but it's in a different place than the way you deal with it. So they're still being, as people would say, they're still God's children. So they're still being watched over. So I think we need to train our mind how to handle these people rather than to judge them. And you have to, when you're managing them, that means they're not going to always do what you want them to do. But we have to stop wanting them to be so much like us. I think I heard something the other day about, I don't know what state it was or city, that were fining these people for sleeping on their other people's property. And it's a sore sight for people to come into the city and see these people laying around and all that. And I can see that being not feeling good to people who have owned property and having people laying around. It's not a good feeling, but we need to learn ways to deal with this other than the way we're dealing. Then somehow I think you may see some change that would come from a higher place to help us deal with them if we ever come to that point where let's just come together in love.
Now, what do you think about all of this killing, Bonnie? And what is the state of mind on all of that? We said people are so angry, and so what do we do with that?
Okay. Well, again, we're living the stuff that we have planted. These are seeds we planted, and I'm not saying us personally, but I'm saying when you look at all the families and how they have raised these children or left them alone or whatever, and they don't know which way to go, and they're very confused about the world and society. We have created this. So once we created this, we're going, what is it? What we're going to do is yours. So we look as it's got to play out. It has to play its role. Because these children are the same with the people in the shelters and living on the streets. They've lost their train of thought, how to do the right thing. and how to manage their encounters and the things that they don't like, and the anger and all that stuff comes out. So they're at the point where they lose remorse for life. And so their killing to them is done, it just has no meaning. They'll shoot in a minute and just not care, give any thought about it, because that's the way they have trained that tool, that brain. Once you train that brain, if you're going to do something different, you have to reprogram it.
Right. You have to be, you become indifferent to
That's
what
right.
you do, which means it does not matter to you one way or the other.
Exactly.
Because you really have nothing to lose.
That's right.
Yourself that you cannot do anything that you subconscious hasn't accepted
That's true.
as being right. And it doesn't really matter what it is. Even if you're Hitler, those people thought they were right by the millions.
The only thing that you can know about this is the only thing we can do is be safe as you can, and keep your people safe as possible, and add love to those people. Instead of judging them and looking back to them a different way, same with the mentally ill or the people sleeping on the street. We need to add love and keep them in our prayers. And of course, you keep yourself safe, as safe as you can. But you have to understand there's another ruling source over all of this. And it's going to have to roll its way on out, because we are in darkness right now. We're not in darkness totally. Darkness is moving out, is what I'm trying to say. So when darkness moves out, it's like any kind of transitioning. It's painful sometimes when you're making a different kind of, So it's very painful for darkness, for us to manage all this darkness. It's rolling out really fast. And we really don't realize how fast it's rolling, but it's definitely.
Well, I'm looking at how fast these days are. What's with that? How fast these days are going?
Yeah, it does.
I was coming out of my building today where I work, and this girl was saying, it's almost Christmas, and she said, it's like I just finished doing Black Friday a minute ago, and we almost back to that again. So one of the days is going. Time is going by so fast.
It's really the mind, because time is the same. Those hours that we count the same way. But it's going in the universe. 2012 was our year of change, and we all thought the world was going to crumble. And that's a whole other story too. But to let you know that we are moving now, this earth is moving in a space that it's never been before. So we're going to experience a lot of applied energies based on that fact, that the world has never been in this path before. But it's moving because that is higher than us, our higher power is moving it. And it moved it based on the human, I guess you would call it, our ability to save 212. In other words, when 212 came, it didn't mean that the earth was going to crumble. It meant mankind was going to crumble. But we passed it. We passed it with all the dark stuff that was going on. There was enough people who were in the light or thinking about the light that held it up. So now that it's moving in a path that we've never expected. And it's all for the good. It is all for the good. When darkness is gone, you're going to see a world in harmony.
Did y'all hear that? We got good news. We see now, but darkness is on the way out.
Instead of worrying about the darkness that's still here, because it has to roll, even with the people that shooting each other on the streets or whatever that's going, it has to roll with all of that.
Out.
Because all you can do though is give it love, because that love goes a long way. When you talk about the light that we have inside of us, and I'm not going to go any deeper than that with this, but the light inside is what moves the planet. So when we tell people why you're here, it's not just about getting married and having babies and families and going on cruises and having a lot of fun. Wonderful too. But the purpose is to help move this planet. So the light that you have is so more powerful than you will ever understand. So when you think a good thought or do a good deed or anything, that light spreads the power.
It does, I agree.
So let your little light shine.
That's why I always say, if I don't ever have a problem. I'm always saying, good morning, joy. You speak to everybody. You really and truly, you have to let your light shine.
That's right.
And if more people did that, because I walk past people sometimes, they don't even look at you, acknowledge you. It's just unbelievable.
Just where they are. But then, you just say, bless you and keep moving.
And that's what I do.
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah. So when we look at the darkness, I tell you, you can almost measure some of the darkness of a lot of the stuff that's going on with us, in our different
Hey, I want
components.
to ask you, why is it that we've having an uprising of suicide in our community? Because that never happened before. Black people, due to our experiences, well, I don't like the name black, but anyway, African Americans in their experiences, what we've been through, would never take their own life when the whole world was turning. We wouldn't do that. And now that's an uprising of that. Why is that?
It's all about the thinking. We're going back to the thinking process. A lot of that stuff is in, and we're getting to where we're going now. I know we can measure, try to measure blackness in our culture against other things, but we change too. We start to change when we start to have different encounters that we cannot process well. And some of those suicidal things can be so many different encounters.
Mhm.
From the point of people saying they're going to leave because they felt like they had half of their foot on the other side of the veil, and it was beautiful there. And I just don't want to be here anymore. Then you've got some people that maybe lost somebody that they just can't get over that grief. I just don't want to be here anymore. It can be many reasons for it, but it is gathering among our race, our black race here, more than it's ever been.
Is that because of the more attention is being paid to the spirit?
I think
they want
it can
to
be
chase the
that.
spirit or follow the spirit.
Well, it can be their interest in the other side of the veil, as you call it. That's not the right.
Well, I have an experience where I saw the other side of the veil, but I also understand that I have a job to do while I'm here.
Well, you were able to process that
Yes.
and do the right thing.
And everybody can.
Everybody can. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Exactly.
I'll get there when I get there.
Yeah, there you go.
Right now I got a job.
Got a job to do. Right, exactly. And that's kind of the way it works. Sometimes we just don't have the mind to hold on to whatever that encounter is. We don't have the mind, so we let it go.
It's another mindset of giving up.
That's right.
That's what a
That's
lot
right.
of people just give up.
So we just give up, and it's so sad to see that happen because, to my thing, you still have a job to do, and it's going to be done whatever it takes.
Now,
So-
another thing, Bonnie, how is it that you get some people that and this, I guess this is a mindset too, because you get some people might live to 107, and then you get others that might move on at 20.
Okay, and this is something that, first of all, we have to remember. We cannot think like the universe. Because again, it's multidimensional. We are linear for the most part. We're so linear, it's hard for even us to understand we have spirit in us. So we're going to become more multidimensional. But those people that stay here like that, they are usually connected in some way. You may not be able to measure it because you'll say, why there? Ain't never one leg in it. But you can't, you're not the one, that's not for you to figure out.
Exactly.
That's the piece where you have to let it go. Because wherever they're here is because their spirit sees the need for them to still be here. If they're giving somebody just a word or two every day that you may not ever hear,
That's right.
whatever it is, it's their thing. But most of those people know more than you know about their connection. They know they're connected in many cases. They do.
And their existence alone is their contribution to the world.
Thank you.
Yes.
Exactly, because that light.
Just by being here and
Yes.
being a soul survivor of our world.
And that's an example, really, a great example.
Because that light is still traveling through their soul.
Isn't it something? Well, it's always the time just always flies when you're giving out wonderful and great information of substance, and that's one of the things that we're so grateful to be able to have this platform that Earl Winfrey and Wanda B provides for us to be able to share our thoughts and feelings, and hopefully, as always, we always hope that we provide food for thought that will carry you for the rest of the week. And we want to really, really thank you, Bonnie, for coming and sharing such great information. and from the Spirit, because we know that you're very spiritual in your deliverance of everything. So we are definitely want you to come back and talk about this school to prison.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
I want to do that. I think
Yeah.
that would be something really good for all of us to do.
Yeah, that sounds like a drain on our natural resources.
Yeah, well, we're definitely going to have you back. Hopefully, we'll be able to come back week after next.
Okay, sounds
Week after
good.
next, that'll be great. And again, I want you to like me on Facebook and possible. And for all of those that think love isn't possible, it really is. Love is possible when you believe it's possible. And don't go anywhere because we have Nate's Pillow Talk with God. So we know that she got a great segment that she always brings to you. So we want you to have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your evening. Again, Bonnie, thank you for sharing. Do you have any quick words just to close us out right quick?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And the one thing that I would say is to start to monitor your thinking process. What you're letting in and how are you allowing it to affect you makes a big difference.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Thank you so much for that.
Indeed. And as always, I want to thank Earl and Wanda for allowing me to be myself again.